Hiya, this is Kitten Features, and you're listening to Show X Live with Ken in the student accommodation all the way in Scotland. Wait, that was years ago. You're listening to Show X Live with your favorite Scotsman Ken, currently residing in the US of A, and Wayne, mostly from Colorado, but spending way too much time in the Howling Abyss instead of Summoner's Rift. Enjoy the show!
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show. You're listening in at 2 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. GMT on this Sunday, the 21st of June, 2020. And I'd like to welcome, as much as you tuning in right now looking, you notice that while normally we would have a Ken in that top right screen, I guess it's this way when I go on the screen here, we don't today, but that's not to say he's not here, because we are joined by a very packed room. We have Ken joining us as always. Hello, Ken.
Hello.
We also have hidden in the ethers our good friend Octale. Todd, how are you doing today?
I'm outstanding, sir.
Awesome.
Absolutely perfect.
Awesome. And on video joining us today is our good friend Jon Wasik, author extraordinaire, who's coming in here to share and talk about some new things. Let's see.
Hello, Governor.
So, Ken should have been coming through, did it not?
Yeah, do we have issues?
No.
No audio from Ken.
No, it's coming through.
Ken
It's
was
coming
saying
through.
He won't have video.
Yeah, no video, but no, he's there. I was going to say, I see it bouncing on my end.
All I said was hello beforehand, though, so you may not have heard me because it was.
All right. So anyhow, we are going to kick off things today with our guest Jon, because you, sir, here are to talk about some new things you have been working on.
Yes, my new book, Secrets of the Chronal, which is the third book of the Sword of Dragons series, which anyone who's been reading my books knows it's a long time coming. Sorry. But
it's kind of it's just traditional for authors, though, isn't it? Like, you're not supposed to be shoving them out every month. It's supposed to be a long time in between, because it's not just so you throw it together last minute, is it?
You would think that, there's a lot of debate about that. A lot of the panels I've been to and a lot of the writers' conferences and stuff, some of the self-published authors will proclaim that the only way to make a living off of it is to write one book a month and publish it once a month. And I'm like, you notice how they disappear after a few years because they get exhausted?
Well, my thing I was going to say is I don't know any major author that I follow that is that prolific when it comes to actually, I would say, full content, full books. I know people who maybe write something every month. They will participate in short story things or, be interactive with their fans and stuff on discussion groups and things like that, but not actually producing books and things you put out there. Plus, I would expect, we've talked about methodology of writing in the past, Jon, about how long it takes to develop a world and story and what your characters are doing. That if you're trying to pop out something every month, I can't imagine you'd have much depth to anything you were doing in that case.
I haven't read any of the books from those guys who were saying it was the only way to go, but I can imagine it would be very difficult to be very deep. To give you a counter example, book 3, Secrets of the Chronal, the very first idea I had for this, I wrote down in a journal in 2015. That's how long this book's been in the works.
Oh, that makes sense. Awesome. So this one you said is the third book in the series. For
the main series, yes.
Yeah, in the main series. Sorry. So for a reintroduction to our audience, for people who have maybe not had the opportunity yet to read any of your books in the Sword of Dragons series, what would you really quickly kind of put together to say, this is, for someone coming in, the kind of story you're telling, the kind of world that someone would be entering upon reading and jumping into the Sword of Dragons?
It's definitely a fantasy adventure. I used to call it an epic fantasy, but apparently that's not quite accurate. But fantasy adventure, Lord of the Rings inspired, but definitely not quite the same level as that. Dragons, swords, magic. Magic is very prolific in the universe. It's very common. And basic premise is that the Sword of Dragons was forged 3,000 years before by the dragons to end a civil war with the Dark Dragons, and now is coming back to the light after being hidden for 3,000 years. And things start to kind of go crazy on this isolated world who they think they're by themselves, and there's no other intelligent species in the universe or the realms. and then elves start showing up and dragons start showing up, and now in this book, dwarves make their presence known, and
Awesome. Awesome. So people will be coming into a fantasy magical world filled with traditional, I would say, somewhat of those kind of traditional fantasy tropes and things like that you'd be used to, but in a world from my own perspective, because I have had the opportunity to read all of your books, where you deal with magic in ways that I find unique and appreciate, and you have definitely built your own world itself that everything is taking place in. So without like spoiling any bits for people that haven't caught up to where we are today in your stories, what can you tell us is the big draw to this newest book, what you're going to announce and kind of talk about today? And as we do talk about this, what have you shared so far? Because you gave me a couple pieces of artwork that I can put up there to share with everyone.
Well, and that was going to be part of the big deal today, is that the cover reveal. I've shown glimpses and little pieces of the cover before, but I haven't actually shown the full-on cover. So I'll start with first showing you a physical copy of the book, and then Wayne has a link for, I would say, maybe the digital, the smaller, narrower one. Show that in a second. But the new cover is yeah.
Nice.
Cool. I like it. Yeah, that's
And let me
sorry,
throw that.
I was watching it live in the camera, then I watched it on the stream afterwards so I could see it twice.
Well, and I'm going to go ahead and throw it up on the screen for everyone to see, kind of the digital version that you sent us. Secrets of the Chronal, the Sword of Dragon Books 3. Really like
the artwork.
Yeah, I love this art style. That's really nice.
That's solid.
Thanks. The same cover artist from the others. His name was Vuk Postic, I think is how it's pronounced. I got him off of Shutterstock. I found him, and he had amazing artwork. Unfortunately, since then he's stopped doing pure fantasy artwork, and he's turned more towards Christian artworks. So he took all of his dragon artwork down. So I might have to find a new cover artist for future books, but that's okay. This one was phenomenal.
That makes it more rare and unique. Then this is you can no longer find any works by this artist.
Right. Plus, it's very unlikely that any other author out there will have the same artwork on their covers, since they're no longer available for purchase. So that makes it better for me in that case.
Score.
But based on the title, Secrets of the Chronal, anyone who has read the previous books, the Chronal is said to be the central religious text of the Order of the Ages, which is the big religion on the world. Halorite is the name of the world. But it's not what you think it is, and it's not what they've proclaimed it to be. And as you'll have seen in the previous books, the point of view thing that Obi-Wan Kenobi is so famous for, they love to do the point of view thing. And the final secrets for the religion will come out, and it will be to the peril of all.
Oh,
nice.
So tell us more information about release dates and this kind of thing. What's going on with all that?
So that's the other big announcement today, is the release date is officially July 18th this year, 2020. Pre-orders as of yesterday, actually, they came up early, are available on the Kindle edition. I am still working on getting the some sort of a pre-order going for the hard copy edition, because Amazon doesn't have any mechanism for that. Go figure. But maybe through like PayPal or something. Wayne and I were talking about it earlier. I'll try to figure out something, especially for anyone who wants autographed copies. I want to figure that out, because coronavirus. There will not be an in-person party this year.
That must be really sad for you, dude, because you must be really excited getting the book out and working on it for years as well, and then suddenly you're like, oh, I can't have my party. Oh.
And I feel like I've already delayed it so much that delaying it longer just to be able to have a physical release party I don't think people would appreciate that as much.
No.
Yeah.
No, I think it's fair to your fans. They're more interested in the, because not everybody can attend in person. More people will read it than in person. So that's that. You made the right decision, I think.
Yeah. So I definitely want to have some sort of a virtual release. I might do some sort of stream where I read a couple of chapters or something and try to get people excited about it. And yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, I like the idea of having a live stream reading or something of maybe the first chapter or something.
Yeah.
How do you feel? How do you feel your reading voices? Do you think you're a narrator on the inside?
So I think I'm getting better at that. I know I keep getting calls from people saying, "Hey, we want audiobook," and since I'm poor and can't afford to hire someone, I've been trying to do it myself. Wayne has graciously let me borrow his microphone for I think years now. But while I was doing the final proofread of this before my final edits, I actually was reading, especially the dialogue out loud to see how it felt and sounded, and
That's a good way of doing it, I think. Yeah.
feel like my oh wow, my brain just fried. Anyway, I feel like my voice acting has gotten better because of that.
Nice.
That's cool. No, I think there's something special to be said for when an author does their own voice acting as well, because then you're doing exactly as you planned in the writing. You know, your characters will sound how they sounded in your mind. The inflection will be as you planned it to be. So it's not going to be, somebody else doing the complete opposite direction. Like we had another author on a few weeks ago, Kyle Alexander Romines. And he was saying that when he had a narrator, it was really interesting because he'd have different inflections of what he planned, especially when it's when somebody says when there's the a sentence that says the word "said" in it. Like, what kind of inflection is implied in that? It depends on the reader, I suppose. The reader will put on their own inflection, and so a narrator would have a freedom of will to do as they please. But this way, you can really kind of set the score and say, no, this is how they talk.
Yeah. It's plus also there's a lot of unique words and names in my book, so at least I know how they're supposed to be pronounced, even if
Yeah. That's a common thing with fantasy, of course, is there's often, unique languages and spellings, and yeah, that must be an interesting problem to overcome as well.
Yeah. But yeah.
I feel like we have an opportunity here because we were talking just before, and you'd asked the question specifically, Ken, about John's reading skills and his ability to read out loud. I think you'd said you might be willing, John, to give us a taste of the new book, of some of the prologue of such, to give us a little whet the appetite for what readers will be in tale for.
Sure. Well, for the one bit, I wanted to do the back of book blurb, which you'll be able to see now on the Amazon page as well, but I can read it out loud. And then if you'd like, I can read the prologue.
We have to do this in proper teaser trailer format. So, okay, here's how we're gonna do this. This is totally extemporaneous, so it's probably not gonna work, but it'll be fun. So, Wayne, give us a 5-second countdown. I'm gonna do the "In a World."
Okay.
And then,
all right, it'll go. We'll do the countdown. As John reads it, I'll put the graphic of the book cover with the blurb on it on the background. Perfect. And we'll be all set to go. So here we go, everybody.
This is off the show content, everybody.
Coming from
Octo.
In
my announcer voice too.
Oh well, no, you're going to give us the read voice. We got Octo leading us in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
In a world.
Hallerite reels from the cataclysmic events of the burning skies. Unrest plagues the 4 kingdoms, and religious fervor grows ever more rampant. When Nuldan brutally attacks the Wizards Guild, Cardin, Endry, and the rest of his team leave Hallerite in pursuit. In their absence, a powerful entity calling himself Zyrel, one of the 6 gods of the Order, seizes control of Tal. As Zyrel mercilessly seeks the 4 parts of the Chronal, the kingdoms learn that the Covenant hid the truth about them. If Zyrel obtains all 4, he will become an unstoppable force, capable of conquering not just Hallerite, but the entire universe.
Yeah!
Woo! Well done, sir. See, look.
This Trebek, does it work?
Oh, sir,
we'll find out today, but first.
I'll order a dozen.
Awesome. Thank you for that.
And doesn't have to be right now, but if you want before the end, I can give you a read through of the 1.5-page prologue.
Awesome. Yeah, very interested in that.
Yeah, and just let me know when. We're still just getting started, it seems, today.
Yes, we
so you're
are.
hearing clickety clicks. He's been getting his practice by doing emceeing for conventions. Yes, my wife and I, she's over to the side here, being my encouraging support, do a lot of MC work too, for some conventions. So that's helped with the voice too.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
Nice.
Nice.
yeah.
All right.
Cool.
So
what all
Let's
would
do
you
some
say?
nerdy stuff.
Nerdy stuff? I like nerdy stuff.
well, so okay.
Obviously.
Well, no. So finish off the book thing. And because you don't, even though this is book 3 in the series, you have 4 books out that all take place within the Sword of Dragons world, within Howlright and everything like that. Just as a kind of comparison of what you've done in the past, could you kind of show us how they all tie together, what the 4 books are, so that when someone goes out and looks to find your works, they know where to start and kind of where to go with it?
Right. So initially, when I had first started the series, I had planned to release book 1 and book 2 6 months apart from each other, which didn't work out time-wise because life. So I decided to do a series of short stories that took place between books 1 and 2 to get them out rapidly and keep people interested. And I eventually ended up publishing that as an anthology book. So technically, the book 1 and book 2, you've got Rise of the Forgotten and Burning Skies. Those are the main books of the series. But in between, featuring characters that are not central to the rest of the story, I had the Orc War campaigns. Yeah.
Nice.
And so that, and it ended up being that Orc War campaigns took on a life of its own, became way longer than I expected. But I think that turned out to be a really good story, and some of those characters are going to make a comeback in book 4, actually. But so if you're only interested in the main series, you don't need to read Orc War campaigns to understand what's going on with the rest of it. But yeah, Rise of the Forgotten, Burning Skies, and now Secrets of the Chronal. But there's a lot of good stuff in Orc War campaigns. I really recommend it if you enjoy the series and enjoy the universe. It's a good segue into more detail about the cities, the technology, stuff like that.
No,
Magic.
that's absolutely true, because I know for me, I had read the main 3 and I had started Orc Wars campaign, but then got sidetracked and didn't realize I hadn't finished it until after I read book 3. And going back for me into Orc Wars campaign after finishing 3 was pretty significant, because there were a lot of connections with specific characters and stories that I found were fleshed out in the Orc War campaigns. Especially, I want to say the main king. I think there was a lot more involved there that kind of leads into what you do more and find out about in the 3rd book. And so I would recommend it as something, if you're going to read the whole series, to pick up all of them and kind of read that 1, 2 in the order that you wrote and released them. Book 1, book 2, Orc War campaigns, and then book 3 would be my recommendation, just from my own experience. Now, I am also left in a bit of a interesting state in that I had the opportunity on your 3rd book to participate in the process of doing an early edit or kind of review of the book, in that I was able to read through
beta reading, yeah,
and provide some feedback on it. And so I unfortunately have not seen the final edits and what is in the full book. And so for me, I'm very curious to see how it all ended up coming together, and what you incorporated from, what I had to say, what others had to say, and kind of what you ended up fleshing together into the final book. So I'm really curious about that myself, and we'll have to get hold of my copy, both to complete what's on the shelf and so that I can see how you worked it all together. And so I look forward to that a lot. Awesome. So
also, you had brought it up before too, and I think I brought it up. If anyone's curious how this has progressed, and it seems this is common for fantasy, this newest book is definitely the biggest, and here's a comparison of the thickness of them all.
Well, look at you trying to show off how thick it all is.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you know it. But yeah, so there's a lot more to this book. It is the most complex book I've ever written. I literally had charts of where each character was at what time, so that I could make sure I didn't mess up timing on anything.
That's tough. That's a really difficult part of writing, I think, is the sort of design behind everything. I mean, I think in some regards it's quite easy to put pen to paper and start writing something, but when you've got suddenly, annals of context to consider and previous writings to consider, it becomes a battle of making sure you're not contradicting your past self or making characters contradict themselves, and so on.
But I definitely also want to say thank you, Wayne. Thank you, Danielle, as well, if she's watching, for being my early beta readers. You guys saw something of the book before it was really seriously edited, and I'm so sorry for all the typos and grammar errors and stuff you saw.
Hey, it was interesting being a part of the process and being able to have those kind of candid discussions about the book prior to pretty much anyone else having seen it. And so that was actually a really good time.
It's valuable too. There was I found with when you hear opinions from readers, you'll get disparate ones. Some people say this is good, but someone else will say that's bad. But when everyone who reads it agrees that something needs fixing, such as the beta readers did agree on several items, I'm like, need to fix it.
That'll be interesting. That'll be very cool to see. Cool.
It's quite
Awesome.
interesting to see the different type of beta readers' inputs as well. I mean, if it's some people who may have writing experience, or others who don't read much fantasy, and or those who have read lots of fantasy, there must be different viewpoints when people think of the story, and what kind of feedback they can provide as well.
Yeah.
Well, and I know for me in the process, it was interesting because I had read the earlier books, and just because I knew they were written and knew you, I just read them. And until being given the opportunity to provide feedback, I hadn't really dug into the book in anything that I might have seen that could use work. And so it was a really different experience for me to go back or to start one of your books where I know the story, but now I'm going through with a critical eye to actually look for things, be it spelling errors or, something that might have been stated twice real quick after each other that became a bit laborious instead of kind of streamlined how you ended up making it. It was weird for me to kind of go in with that eye because it was a different experience for me to just enjoy the story and kind of read through to then say, but maybe I can provide some helpful feedback, and not also wanting to overstep any lines of something I'm saying like, but I really appreciated this, but I struggled with this or something like that. And so for me, it was an interesting process, and that'll be another thing for me to go back and check it out again, to just be a reader and kind of see it from that perspective. But I appreciated the opportunity to do so. And it also got me.
I hope it doesn't ruin it for you.
Like I said, it was a different experience. It was one where, because I kind of did a light read first, which admittedly, thank you to the robots that I have to do for me, because I was using the text to speech options on both my phone and computer and stuff like that to basically audiobook it myself.
Nice.
Which is always an interesting experience because pronunciation is way different, and there is no pacing of punctuation in those robots. And so you don't get like those natural pauses with punctuation that you would normally get from you as a reader. And so a lot of the sentences seem to kind of just run into each other. And so it takes a certain level of listening to understand what's being said to still get it. But I did that as an initial just first touch of the story, and then went back with the more critical eye actually reading it and looking through to give feedback. So it'll be interesting to go back and experience it again without any of that and kind of see how it goes. I wanted to say I had another general thought, but if nothing else, what I can do is say a transition somewhat to how Todd was saying about geekiness. Is I know earlier when we talked to you before, we had talked about projects you were doing around your books and your stories and things like that. And one of those projects was you have spent in the past a lot of time, but I haven't talked to you recently about your Minecraft world. You were presenting the main city in Minecraft and allowing people, because I also had an opportunity there to go explore a bit of it. So where is that at right now? Or what have you been doing with it?
I haven't worked on it a lot in the past few months. Earlier at the beginning of the year, I was doing a lot of work, and I've pretty much finished the castle and the castle grounds around the main kingdom, Tal. So the main city is Arcanon. Why I decided to start my project on the biggest city in the entire world, I must have been crazy. But the inner wall was completed. The outer wall is still kind of half completed, but the castle itself and the grounds, I finally decorated the grounds, are good to go. I like putting in little. Every now and then you'll turn around a random corner that leads to nowhere, but there will be a sign there with a little in joke in it. But that's kind of the most detail I've added to it.
Nice.
The next thing I was going to do was to be starting to fill out the inner city, which is where all the rich people live. But I only got one building completed, it not even fully completed, and then I got distracted by other things like 7 Days to Die and.
You mean gaming?
Yeah. I do. I'm never gonna let it go. The server is still running, and every now and then I'll log into it just to make sure that it's still in one piece and alive. But get back to it. I definitely don't intend to let that project die. I knew it was going to be years and years and years before it would ever come close to complete. But it is the entire central continent of Edelus, which is where Tal and the other four, the three other kingdoms are. I do intend to someday fill that out, and maybe someday my books will be so popular that I'll have a lot of people who want to help out.
I see. That would be cool.
Have you considered using a hex editor or anything like that in Minecraft? Because I know you can have sort of map editors that allow you to edit the chunks outside of Minecraft, and then it's suddenly, you can easily place 10,000 chunks or something within like a second rather than having to do it by hand.
Well,
I did do that for the landscaping.
Yeah, I was gonna say
cool.
that's how, because you said you started with the. It's not really true. In reality, you started with essentially the entire continent or area you were working on by building that out and creating the like the various biomes of what takes place in your world, as well as rivers and notable landmarks. Because I remember you started with that, and we spent one day running around and seeing so much of the world and stuff like that. I remember very specifically doing that.
Yeah, that was, I think, right after I'd finished most of the landscape part, and I was almost ready to start building the cities. Yeah. The cities do take time, especially because it's been an interesting experience, because I have an image in my head of what the buildings should look like, how they're laid out, but not having a physical representation to explore, look through. I realize that there's some things in the mind that really don't work in real life, which has informed some of what you see in book 3, when they talk about they're out on the oh god, I can't think of the name, the word for it now, the little place where the king goes out and addresses his people who are a level below him, but he's out on the stone platform.
Yeah, basically the dais that he would get about on,
or something like that. Yeah. I had never really pictured that in my head until I started thinking about it in book 3, and that's when I happened to be doing the Minecraft project. So I built it out in Minecraft, and I was able to better picture it in my head for writing it in the book. So it's been kind of a good tool, actually, as a writer.
Yeah, that was going to be one of my questions, actually. Do you think it's useful for either setting up scenes, like maybe if there's a combat scene and you want to think about the logistics of moving around or ranged attacks versus melee attacks and that kind of thing? That could be quite useful. I suppose it depends. Like you said, it's mainly the capital city you've worked on. You think if you focused more on, for example, building any of the new world that you've been exploring with your characters, do you think that would be useful for your writing? Is a useful tool?
It might be. I think it might be. I know Wayne and I have talked about it. Logistics. I've had to think more about logistics and laying out the landscape itself for the entire world, and that's where Pardon Kater, the protagonist, his hometown, Darun. I know all these weird words and names. I hadn't really thought about some of the logistics about where it was located and why it was located there. So building it in Minecraft has been a big help for that. But it's interesting you mentioned other worlds too. That's one of the things I wanted to bring up about this new book is probably only half of it this time takes place on Hallerite. Interlaced throughout the book, Pardon and some of the others go to other worlds. The Dragon homeworld being one of the big ones, called Stella.
Is that named after the beer by any chance?
No.
See, the first thing that came to mind was just when you said, I was thinking Stella. But
the Celestial Spires, where the dragons currently reside, is also featured in there. And that's going to be seen more and more throughout the books. We're going to see more and more of the other worlds, the other cultures, which is interesting to build and quite fun. Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. So thank you, Jon, very much for sharing with us, what you're doing and what readers have to look forward to as we look at the next Sword of Dragons book that's coming out. I'm sure we'll jump back and forth as we discuss other things. We're inviting you, of course, to stick around because not only are you an author, but you're also a geek. And we love to geek out on this show and talk about things that are going around, everything of what we're seeing out in the world itself to what we're doing and things like that. So we're going to open up the discussion, I think, a bit to kind of talk about some more things. I'm actually going to turn over initially to Todd because I know he came with a whole queue of things he would love to bring up. So I thought we would start there and kind of roundtable and go through.
We did the serious topic a couple of weeks ago, and then I, in my way that I do my own idiom, double booked myself last week. But I'm back, and there's a new downloadable content for Europa Universalis 4. And
yes.
the reason why I'm talking about Europa Universalis 4 is it joins World of Warcraft as my only 1,000 hours played games.
I was just about to ask you how many hours do you now have in this game, but thank you for answering
1,000, for the record, 1,302, according to Steam.
Oh my God.
I'm a little bit addicted.
So you think it's kind of a bad game, is what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay, so
it's definitely not worth
you wouldn't recommend it,
money, especially if you can get it on sale.
So because I do not know anything about this game, Todd, I'm going to have to ask, what would you say? How would you describe the experience of what this game is?
Start at the beginning. So
because I'm looking up trailers, and the oldest one I see is like 6 years ago.
No, this game is old. This came out in like 2014, so it's a very long-standing game, and its community is just incredible with the amount of energy and whatnot that it has. But anyway,
that's really surprising. A good community in a video game. Are you sure this is a video game? Is this not like?
Just don't go to forums, right?
Okay.
That's always the advice, right?
Stick to the internet's colon, and that's Reddit for those that don't know, and YouTube and Twitch, and you can find some good stuff out there for sure. But anyway, so the developer of Europa Universalis 4 is Paradox Interactive, and they do a series of these things that they call grand strategy games. And they're all of the same flavor. Here's the world in a time period. Have fun. Go build, conquer, whatever you want to do. So if you go all the way back to Common Era, BCE time frame, they have a game called Imperator Rome. Then they have Crusader Kings, which is sort of the Dark Ages game.
I remember that
Europa
one.
Universalis, it's the 1400s to 1820s game. Victoria 2 is after that. Hearts of Iron is World War II, and then Stellaris is sort of the future game. And the way these things. Oh, sorry, Ken. Go ahead.
I was just going to say I can speak to Stellaris because that's the only one of those that I've played, and I very much enjoy Stellaris. But sorry, please continue.
Well, no, I was actually very interested that you laid it out like that for us, Todd, because I've heard of individual of those games and did not realize they were connected in any way. That's kind of what they're doing. You actually answered one of my questions ahead of time, where I was going to ask if this was like the scope of civilization, where it goes from cradle of Earth to futuristic universe, but it sounds like they each are kind of specific to an era, is what I'm hearing.
So they are very, very much so. That said, there are utilities out there that allow you to convert game saves from one game to another.
What?
So you know that. Start Crusader Kings, convert to Europa Universalis, convert to Victoria, convert to Hearts of Iron, convert to Stellaris.
Oh wow!
It can be very useful to convert to
play
Stellaris
what they call the mega campaign.
Wow.
and play full campaigns in all of these games. Like, I don't know how you do that. Like, a full campaign, if you're really doing the micro to do big stuff, it takes me, I would say, between 15 and 20 hours if I'm going all the way from 11 November 1444 to January 3rd, 1821. So, like, to do a mega campaign where you start all the way in like 800 or 900 with Crusader Kings and going all the way to the end of Stellaris, like it would be like 100 hours or something goofy like that. But anyway,
That'd be
so
epic.
to talk a little bit more in specifics about Europa, every day from 11 November 1444 to 3 January 1821 is represented in game.
Whoa, wait.
You, as the player, play a country that existed in the world on 11 November 1444.
Okay.
Okay.
And this is turn-based or real-time strategy?
I would consider it turn-based. So, as the player, what you have the ability to do is control the flow of time.
Okay.
So you can have the days go really, really fast if you want to, or you can have the days go very slowly if you want to. And every day is kind of a turn, but it's not really processed that way like you would in Civ, where you hit end turn and it goes to the next.
Yeah, it does a whole
next
skew
thing.
of.
Like, the days just full until you pause.
Oh, okay.
Which you can do with the space bar. You can pause, every day if you want to, and sort of look at things if you're doing a ton of micro, or if you're not doing all that much. If you're not doing all that much for a period of time, like you're letting your aggressive expansion tick down or whatever, you can just let the days roll really fast because your empire will sort of just run itself, without a lot of intervention on your part.
So you can kind of determine how much you want to micro and macro manage the entire experience.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, some of the things that are really hard, like you want to do a lot of micro, so you're pausing every couple of days, and there's a lot of, this army is entering a specific province on a specific day, and if I can get there first, I'll be in defensive terrain with river crossing, which are massive penalties to attack rolls for the enemy if you can set that up. So, and the thing I think I like the most about this game is it's the intersection of a whole bunch of mathematics.
Okay.
Like, it's all game mechanics just interacting with each other. It's incredible.
Could you explain that a little bit more, Todd? Because that to me, that's any video game. Like, why do you think this one's
there's just so much of it.
Okay, because complex and intertwining sort of thing.
Yeah, so if I wanted to, so just for an example, okay, before the patch hit, I was doing a campaign as the Ottoman Empire, but I didn't just want to play them as the Ottoman Empire because you just stomp a mud hole in Europe and walk it dry, and then head to India and you just start walking over people, and you stop when you get to Japan, essentially. Which isn't very much fun. So I did something where I flipped the religion of the Ottoman Empire to Orthodox Christianity. Okay. And so I made Orthodox Ottomans.
Nice.
And so the thing about the world in 1444 is there were only like 4 Orthodox countries in the world. The princes that end up forming Russia at some point. So the Muscovites, Novgorodians, etc., Moldavia, and the Byzantines.
Okay.
And that's it. Right? So by flipping the Ottomans Orthodox, there are all sorts of things that you can do with your religion. So so you have technologies that you can take. You earn points every month, and you put those points towards earning technologies. When you, at certain technological breakpoints, you can take an idea set. One of the idea sets is called religious ideas, At the end of the religious ideas, you spend points to get things in these idea sets. When you finish the last idea in the idea set for religious ideas, it's called Deus Vult, which allows you to declare war on anybody who's not your religion.
Oh no!
And I flipped the most powerful country in the world, second most powerful country in the world, from 1444 to about 1515 to a religion where there are only 4 countries in the world with that religion.
Huh.
And I went on the march, as you do. And yeah, it was hilarious. It was so much fun. And that's just one example of the kinds of things that you can do with the way the mathematics all intersects with each other. Another example, you can play as one of the Mongolian steppe hordes. So either the Mongolians or Oirat or Chagatai, Uzbek, like they were all part of the Mongol Empire at one point, but they fractured by 1444. So you can play as one of those, and as a horde, when you conquer territory, it is in your best interest to raise that territory. It essentially burns it, making the territory less valuable in the long run, but providing you immediate bonuses every time you do it. But I'm on the doorstep of China when I start. So there's all that farmland in central and southern China that is pretty valuable to this game.
Uh-oh.
Did everybody hear that? That was weird.
There was a
everything
sudden
cut out for a
hiccup
second.
in all of Skype right there for just
Oh,
a
wow.
second.
That must be a Skype problem rather than an
Yeah.
us problem.
No, I watched
Yeah.
I watched everyone flash on Skype, so I think we're good.
I assumed it was me, and then
Wayne, you and Jonathan have switched spots.
Oh, okay.
So
Thankfully,
on
I
my
have you guys
screen,
set
Wayne
on
was on
mine.
the left, Jonathan is on the right. You've now reversed. So anyway, yeah, you can burn all of the provinces in central and southern China, and they're valuable, so you get a lot of points and money from doing that. But because you're a horde, you're allowed to have more cavalry in your army than a non-horde country would be allowed.
Okay.
And cavalry units for the first 100 years or so of the game are just better.
Makes sense.
And because you're a horde, you're faster, and you can do all of these other things because you're a horde. And it's just, yeah. Again, it's just the intersection of a lot of
Okay.
different mechanics at the same time, and how you can build bonuses on top of bonuses and get them to stack off of one another. And it's it's pretty good.
I imagine
pretty
that
good.
just reaches into the way you love to play games, Todd, because I know I always think back to discussions we had on early shows and stuff about how you would play games like Final Fantasy VII and other stuff like that, how there were specific mechanics you would focus on and be able to provide a maximum output from. And so it sounds
Sure.
like with that flexibility in this game, you must be eating that up. But I also am curious,
Oh yeah.
is there enough essentially the open-endedness for how a person can play that there's a lot of different win states and ways that you can progress the game other than just militaristic or just
Sure.
Sure. Kind of those things I see in Civ, but what are some of the
Right.
nuanced ways you can progress the game with this?
Okay, so I'll just give you an idea. I'll give you an idea of some of the campaigns that I've done, and this goes all the way back to when I started playing this game like a year and a half or 2 years ago.
Some 1,400 hours ago of gameplay.
Yeah,
right?
1,400 hours ago. So I played a game where I started as Byzantium and reconquered all of the traditional Byzantine lands, so Constantinople, Greece. I took the 5 holy cities of Orthodox Christianity, so Rome, Constantinople, Antioch, Alexandria, and Jerusalem, and restored the Pentarch, essentially, and you get an achievement for that.
Nice.
I played a campaign starting as Holland, And Holland starts in a personal union with Burgundy in 1444. So I started that campaign, declared my independence from Burgundy, formed the Netherlands, won the religious war inside the Holy Roman Empire for the Protestants, became Holy Roman Empire, or became Holy Roman Emperor, and formed the country of the Holy Roman Empire. So essentially taking over the thrones of all of the princes inside the HRE.
Is it fair to say that this game requires a level of understanding of history?
I'll tell you what, I have nerded out super hard. So one of the things that we're doing, because I live in Europe and I work for a really small company, is we take weekend trips every year. So last year we went to Rome in October, and we spent a Friday, Saturday, Sunday in Rome.
Nice.
So our guide is a friend of the company who knows Rome really well. And so we did a pre-Christianity Rome, a early Christianity Rome that included the Vatican, and then a late Christianity or later Christianity Rome. And it's just like we barely scratched the surface, and we were there for 3 days. I think I walked something like 40 kilometers in 3 days, or 50 kilometers in 3 days. I mean, like we were on the go almost all day, every day. To say nothing of the food, by the way.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just all historical nerdiness. Like I've been to Prague once. We went to Krakow. We went to Krakow once. So yeah, I mean, it's I'm seeing all of these great European cities, and I play this video game that's all like, I don't know, it's just fun. It's like, what would happen if the Ottomans got to Constantinople and decided, this Orthodox Christianity thing's not so bad. Let's try that instead of Islam. Like what happens? And it's hilarious.
Well, I was gonna say, so prior to or in going on that trip, would you have considered yourself much of a general history buff otherwise? Or do you feel like you really gained a lot of that understanding and appreciation from playing these games? And games like this?
It's hard to say. It's somewhat paradoxical. Like I like I like history. I wouldn't say I wasn't a huge history buff, so to speak, but I certainly am always interested in, what was happening at the time to inform the people to make the decisions that they did, right? It's not always easy to understand why an emperor in Rome would decide to just pick up the seat of his power and move it to the Bosphorus Strait, right, in Turkey, and in modern Turkey, and go, yep, this is going to be my capital now, funk. Like, why would somebody do that? Like, to this day, I don't even know, but I bet if I went to Istanbul, right, you could find out from the history, because it's the same city, and the walls, the Byzantine walls are still there, and you can go visit them. And not all, obviously, but some amount of the old Orthodox churches are still there.
Okay.
Right. So it's still it was called the Second Rome for a while. Rome, obviously, being the first Rome, Constantinople being the second Rome, and Moscow being the third Rome, as the sort of centers of Orthodox Christianity at various times. Yeah, so it's just I would say that I have become more interested in European history as I've played Europa, and my interest in European history has caused me to play Europa more.
Okay,
it's cool.
No, so they've gone back and forth.
I think it's a very good thing as an American coming to Europe to, become interested in the history there, because I think maybe the European mindset, at least for myself, is that you're used to it. When you're
Wait.
born in Europe, you don't think anything of the fact that your country's thousands of years old. That's just normal.
Yeah, and my struggle has been and continues to be the staggering age of everything.
Yeah, no, that's definitely
Right,
something
so-
that we here in the U.S. have no comprehension of.
Yeah. America's 270 some odd years old, or 280 some odd years old now. So the fact that, a couple of years ago I went to France and I sat in an 800-year-old Templar church in the middle of the French countryside that's built out of stone, that the acoustics in are perfect, right? And it's like 4 times older than anything I have context for. Or, Oslo celebrated its millennial anniversary.
Actual millennial.
Yeah, actual millennial.
That's awesome. Yeah, like I've lived in buildings that have like 300, 400-year-old walls, and I don't think anything of it.
Wow.
And it's weird now being in America and seeing everything is so brand new. You can tell the road sizes alone are the most indicative, right?
Oh yeah.
And the fact that everything's a grid here, everything's like planned, whereas it's sort of evolved naturally in Europe, and everything's winding, and you have buildings in strange places.
That actually makes me think of something. Bit by bit, Beck and I have been playing through the Assassin's Creed series, and we just got to, I think it's Unity, the one in Paris. And I'm running down these alleyways that are like as wide as a 50-inch TV, and I'm like, how did they turn those into roads in modern day? How do cars fit down this, let alone pedestrians? And
One at a time.
Well,
Yeah.
and in Paris,
I'm deadly serious about this.
Yeah.
One at a time. There are towns in the countryside in France that are only big enough for a single car in a single direction to go through, and really, the people who built the city and whatnot are relying on the fact that there's only local traffic driving on these roads,
Yeah.
and so you don't ever run into that situation where
you also have to remember that in Europe, cars aren't as necessary as in the US.
that's true.
So if you miss it, if you can't, well, not everybody's going to be driving to the city. Is my point. Most people will be taking a train or whatever.
also true. Also
Yeah.
true.
That is
Also,
something that a lot of Americans can't wrap their mind around, because unless you live in one of our very dense cities, which I never have, for me, car travel is a necessity. And so because I think that's one of those conversations, Ken, you and I have had a lot about why certain things are the way they are in the US versus what you're used to. And I'm sure for you, Todd, that's a lot of things you've been experiencing, even though where you're at is, I would say, almost like hybrid from what I've understood and what I've seen.
I've been in Oslo a little over 5 years now, and I still get caught by the trap that everything here is closer than I think it is to each other.
Yes. Yeah,
Right,
my old
so
adage, growing up in like Lincoln, Nebraska, when I would say something was across town, that meant a very different thing than what it does with me living in Denver. When for me, across town is getting to the other side of Denver, which takes me 45 minutes, so which in Lincoln, Nebraska took me 10, if that.
Right.
The one of the things that I've really struggled with this year is local supplies. Like yesterday, actually, I decided to go do some grocery shopping, but I didn't want to do like a full shop, so I just wanted to get some milk, some eggs, and bread. And I don't drive. I don't have a car because COVID has made me not be able to get a driver's license in the US. And my UK one doesn't count because the US is dumb. It doesn't believe other countries.
You've been here too long, sir.
I know. It's just So I was like, oh, I'll go check out this local store, and it's like a corner shop, but it just sells booze. And I was all right, I'll try this other one, but it's a Chinese one, only sells soy milk. And then I tried the next one along, and it was Whole Foods, and it had milk, but it was at 3% markup because it's Whole Foods. And I thought, you know what, screw it. I'm just going to walk an hour and a half all the way over to Meijer because the only way I'll actually be able to get the thing I need. Whereas in the UK, you'll never be more than 10 minutes away from a corner shop that has some of the essentials.
Okay, yeah, Ken, so that's true, but truth in advertising, maybe Scotland is different, or the UK is different than Norway is. But to me, it's inconceivable to walk into a grocery store and them to not have something.
Yeah.
Which is a real thing here.
Meaning
So
that
I
there's only
have-
so much selection where you're at that you might have to go to multiple shops to get what you need for the day.
So there are no real supermarkets per se.
Okay.
Like the big store, I have to walk up the hill like 3 blocks up the hill to go to, and it has the best selection of vegan stuff.
Okay.
So if I'm shopping for the Mistress of Giggles, that's where I tend to go.
Oh, I didn't know she was vegan.
Yep, she has been for, I don't know, 2-3 years now.
Oh, fantastic! Cool.
Something like that. Yeah,
Sure.
I very much am not. I can't. I
You
can't. I
you
can't
make
do it,
up for
but-
hers.
Well, so yeah, I eat double the meat now. That's four burgers when I go out for burgers. No,
My.
but at the same time, I also eat what's put in front of me. So if Mog decides she wants to make dinner, for example, and it's a vegan dish and whatever, I eat what's put in front of me. So it's not like I have a problem with the way vegan food tastes or anything like that. I just like meat and cheese and eggs.
Oh, yes.
So that's gonna be
Or what
tough.
we had for breakfast.
Mm.
Meat, cheese, and eggs.
So where was I going? Oh yeah, so the grocery stores. So there are 4 other stores within a couple of blocks. But if you go into the one that's closest to us, there's no guarantee that what you're looking for is going to be in there, because these stores are tiny, right? They put them on the first floor of buildings that people live in. So, yeah, it's just you just have to be prepared that if you're going for the really fast, close by food shop, that you're gonna have to go someplace else, even in the same chain. Because the limited amount of space, it just means that they may not have what you're looking for.
Sure.
So
Because here we have the infrastructure of semi-trucks delivering bulk to every corner of the United States, but I imagine in Europe, where there's skinny little streets with 120-degree churns, that semis aren't really practical.
Dude, I have seen so back in my previous town that I lived in Stirling, Scotland. We lived next to a superstore. It was Lidl, which is a popular European store. It's basically Aldi. It's actually owned by the brother who owns Aldi. Anyway, they used to deliver by semi every day, but the road that they had to deliver on was this tiny little thing, and it held up traffic for about 5 minutes because I had to sort of do like a 16-point turn to reverse into the little car
Oh,
park
wow.
to deliver the stuff. But it was like a known thing locally. Like if you're going to go in that direction, you know that it's quite likely you're going to be blocked by one of the semis.
Gotcha.
yeah, this could be its own topic of its own show at some point.
Yeah, the
for
European
the
versus American.
year and a half that I delivered groceries
Oh, yeah.
to people, and the big delivery van.
Did we lose Stockchair?
You there, Todd?
Yeah, Todd stopped for a moment, so we'll see if he pops back in. We'll assume this one was not a Skype wide and more localized
Right.
for a hiccup, but it happens.
To refer to one of the other points about France, we're saying about France and driving there. We said it was only 1 car per road. That's generally true in most of the towns, but if you go to Paris, you can quite easily fit 3 because they don't really believe in having clean, unbroken cars. So they're just bashing into each other on the way down. So
I was going to say there's lots of places outside of the U.S. where the way they drive would make anyone here anxious and lose their mind because
I am
rules on the road
to
are
Russia.
Well, for me, I've seen like India. I've seen areas in like Singapore, a lot of like
you've seen
Asian
India?
areas, Southeast and stuff like that, where a lot of the areas you drive between are just open. Earthweaver in the chat saying Haiti is like that in that, it's places that traditionally got along with horse and carts and were suddenly given technology of cars and just like, sweet, and just keep going versus building an infrastructure around it.
Sure. Sure. Now, so imagine being on the side of a sheer cliff, down to the ocean
Hmm.
in the middle of a snowstorm in February in an environment where nobody shovels their driveway.
Oh
Oh, boy.
gosh.
Yep. Yep.
That
I made the decision that I was going to run into a wall rather than take the risk of going backwards off of a
Ugh.
cliff.
Good.
Yes.
That sounds
Yep.
like probably the better decision made.
Yep. It's honestly, I mean, I can look back on it now and laugh, but at the time I was simultaneously scared to death and mad because I was going to be behind schedule.
Oh
In the
gosh.
middle of the snowstorm on the side of a hill overlooking the ocean in the middle of January. Like, it was just
That's terrifying, dude.
yeah.
I would definitely wasn't driving a semi at the time, but the worst experience I've had was I wasn't even driving, actually. I was like 14, 13 years old, and we were in Bulgaria on a ski trip. Well, that's not true at all. Sorry. This was actually when I was 18, 19, and I was with Ken Features at the time. And we had we got on our first holiday, which is to Bulgaria, and we were going up this mountain to go skiing, and we're in this like hired bus with lots of people, and the mountain was initially nice roads, big barriers and everything, and then suddenly it must have turned into like the local ski resorts roads where they didn't have to pay as much for them or whatever.
Oh.
And yeah, there was no chains on the tires, there's snow everywhere suddenly, and the bus is skidding around this road, flying up this mountain at like 60 miles, 70 miles per hour, and it was like I looked outside the window at one point and I didn't see road. I just saw down the mountain. And I was like, my God. So I can only imagine what that was like for you.
So
driving
I've whatever's up on the screen. I've done stuff like this. The only saving grace is that we had studs on our tires
Okay.
until April.
Yeah.
But stuff like this is not all that uncommon. Like, this road is not it's plowed kinda. But they're narrow, and especially when you're out in the countryside, and on top of everything else, Google Maps is not great outside of Oslo metro area.
Ooh.
So it's going to point you in a direction, and things that are not exactly roads are marked as roads. So you may get sent down a field road if you follow the Google Maps to the letter.
Oh no. Oh, watching that video.
right.
Yeah, coming up on
So
an
this is one of the
oncoming
points
car.
where you pucker a little bit, and then you go, "Hey, back it all the way up this hill."
There was a moment where you could see the driver hit the brakes, slid a little bit, and they had to make this decision of what are we
Yep.
doing now?
Welcome to Norway.
And essentially around like a blind corner, which
It's somewhere tropical.
oh gosh, no, that's great.
This is fantastic.
Just giving us an
Giving you
insight
flashbacks, is
into
it?
Todd's life.
Oh, this is that is what October through May
Woo!
or April is like.
Oh, that's too much snow.
Well, and here's the thing, right? So you have two sets of tires on your vehicles, summer tires and winter tires, and you change them in October and April. And the winter tires, at least for the company the grocery delivery company I worked for, they had studs for the winter. So, like, they paid an extra fee to be able to drive around inside Oslo with studded tires on, which
Oh, wow.
is dope because you can, right? I mean, so Oslo, central Oslo is right on the ocean, right?
Uh-huh.
But if you go north at all or east at all from Oslo, you're up in the hills, like, almost immediately.
I can imagine that
like,
because just me being there for a moment, you go anywhere outside of the main towns and you're in either from fjords into just straight up mountains. It's beautiful, but
no, don't get me wrong, scenery is gorgeous. And so what may be rain down in Oslo is not rain
Oh gosh.
when you finally make it to the places you're delivering to.
As you ascend.
Yeah. That job was a lot of fun. I puckered a lot between October and April. And then you got to be outside. You got to be outside all the time in the summer when like it doesn't get dark until 11:30.
Okay.
So you're just outside and it's nice and you're delivering food to people. That's the other advantage of summer over winter. Not everybody puts their address markings on their house
No.
in a easily viewable area
Yep.
too. So that could be an adventure, especially when the Google Maps isn't working. Because anyway,
No, that's awesome. That's
Oh.
crazy.
yeah, the
That was
Norwegian
a-
adventure.
That was a big tangent. I don't know. I think we're talking about Europe in general.
Are we talking about-
Well, it's history in Europe. No, I mean, I love hearing the stories though, because I only got to experience, a week of Norway and it was wonderful. But it was also during, while very long days, it was during May. So it was actually really nice. And I just imagine what winters would be like, because for me, I've lived most of my life in areas where winter only lasts a couple months really, or it's on and off, like in Colorado, right? Wait, I'm not supposed to say this right. In Colorado, we only actually get a handful of days that are really snowy. It's usually quite sunny and dry. And external people aren't supposed to know this because they're not supposed to move here. But
don't move.
it's
Oh,
all
no,
winter all the
Colorado
time. What
now.
you saw in Norway is what it's like
But
all the
that's-
time in
Don't
Colorado.
move. Yeah, there are feet of snow.
Constantly. I
Yeah,
can't
I'm
even
sure
walk
it's
out the
way
door.
worse than Michigan, right?
Well, so the key there is
I lived
places
in
like
Wisconsin, no thanks.
places like Wisconsin, Michigan, all those areas up north, especially near the lakes that are way more humid and at a northern latitude. When winter hits, you're in winter and it stays. And so it sounds very similar to what you're dealing with, Todd, in Norway, where when winter hits, it is winter. And that is now your experience.
Yeah. Few things to say about that. Number one, again, being in Oslo and in the central part of Oslo, we are lucky because the ocean's right there.
Yes. So a little more temperate.
So a lot of the weather is much more temperate than it would be, even other parts of Oslo, because you've got the altitude and you're away from the water. And the farther away from you the water you get, the colder it gets.
Yes.
Right. So so there's that, plus the altitude. The big thing is the days are so short. Like the sun doesn't come. Like we're in the opposite now, but come December, like the sun won't come up until 9:30 or 10 in the morning, and we'll be going down by 3 in the afternoon. So it's
Yeah.
like, here's the
That
sunlight.
would be an interesting experience. I know I like my bits of sun I get. It's funny because even though they say, I can exist inside a lot, proven that through COVID and such, but I still like me some sunlight.
So that's like actually to chat about, Todd. We haven't really talked about your COVID experience in Europe. How has it been
All right,
affected?
real quick, before we transition
Yeah.
into that, I need to take a break myself. I don't know if you guys need to or not, but
I'm all right, but yeah, we can take a break.
or I can take a break and y'all can welcome to continue conversation.
I'm happy to continue if you guys are.
All right, you guys keep going. You guys keep going. I'll be right back. I'm going to refresh your drink and such. Please continue without me. And so with that, continue on. You're still listening and watching Show X. We're not taking a break today. Keep going with conversation. I'd love to hear more about this. So I'll be right back. Continue on.
Show X. That's right. It's 8 minutes past the hour on twitch.tv, and you're listening to the sounds of Show X.
Well, I don't know if it's soothing. That might be a bit of a bad qualifier. So yeah, Todd, what's like
so the COVID experience, yeah. So Norway, I was really worried at first because the Norwegian infection rate looked like it was going to be bigger than exponential at first. Like it looked like it was going to go X to the X.
Ooh, okay.
And at that point, I was like, oh my god, we're talking like 100%, 100% transmissibility here, and like the whole country is gonna be crippled.
I think
But
that was a problem around the world is because there was literally no countermeasures and testing was so low that we didn't. It was just spreading in the best circumstances for the virus, right?
sure. So I started watching the Royal Labs YouTube stream. Pretty quickly, they were streaming 24 hours a day, with real-time updates as to what what countries had infections and how the number of infections and the number of cured or recovered and the number of deaths. And there was a period of time that Norway was in the top 12 globally.
Oh, I didn't know that. Nice.
Uh-huh. Yeah. They were in the first column. Like, so I don't know how much truth there is to this, but there were a couple of news stories going around that they traced basically the source of COVID in Norway back to a couple of groups of tourists that had returned to the country after the infection had made it to continental Europe. So one was a group of skiers from Austria, or that were coming back from Austria, and I can't remember where the other people were coming back from. Spain comes to mind, but I don't think that's right. Anyway, so I was watching it, and while it looked like the infection rate was X to the X, like I was really kind of prepared because the other thing that we found out is that the Mistress of Giggles was in the high risk group. If she were to get infected, she would be in high risk of having severe complications.
Sure.
Relative to that. So we personally went in pretty serious lockdown, and the Norwegian government went into pretty serious lockdown relatively quickly. And it seemed to have worked, because once the restrictions went in place, like Norway started to fall off they were out of the top. At first they were in the top 12, then they fell out of the top 12, then they fell out of the top 25. And now I don't even think they cracked the top 50 anymore globally. Like they're awfully far down the list. And to give you some indication, like I was watching the real time infection statistics pretty much every day, and I haven't done that now for several weeks.
That's good.
So they're loosening, and so most of the people, or most of the companies that could do work from home, are doing work from or are allowing work from home. So I've been working from home since like the middle of February. We were taking it seriously to the point that I was only going out every couple of days to get food.
Mm-hmm.
And then we just weren't leaving the house besides.
Yeah, that's sensible. Yeah.
So all the gyms closed down, the public transportation went on massive reductions in service and workload, and yeah, that's just the Norwegian health authorities like didn't screw around with it at all, and to all of our benefit, really, to the point where now the gyms have opened up as of last Monday, and
That's good.
And things are kind of sort of getting back to normal. Like we lost spring, and so people are really chomping at the bit to get outside.
Yeah.
So I mean, there are a lot of people outside now.
But the infection rates are still pretty low and everything.
Well, yeah. So it dropped off pretty significantly. Like I said, after that original burst, when sort of like private industry and the Norwegian government were like, okay, we're gonna do what it takes get this thing under control. The funny thing is, a lot of people there were quite a few furloughs for people. But on the other side of that coin, the company that I used to deliver groceries for has expanded their staff by, I think, a factor of 3.
Wow. Well, that makes sense, right? They need to.
They're delivering food now from 4 in the morning until 10 o'clock at night. So
That's
you
crazy.
can, if I were to do a Colonial order right now, I could schedule it at between 4 and 9 in the morning if I wanted to. So yeah, it's just lots of contactless delivery. All of the grocery stores have hand sanitizer.
That's good. It's similar here, actually.
Yeah.
What's it like in terms of culture? Do you think the people are kind of responding well?
I was skeptical because it was not clear in, say, the middle of April. Like the second week of April, it wasn't clear, I don't think yet, that the precautions that the government and industry had taken had really worked or not. Like you could tell a little bit, but I don't think it was really, really clear like it was as we got into May. And we got our first sort of really nice couple of days, and there were a ton of people outside. Like we got the first day where it got above 50 degrees Fahrenheit, and the park was full.
Yeah. So
yeah, we've seen similar here as things are opening up. It opens up suddenly, and then there's lots of people doing it. We've been still like in Michigan now. You're allowed to go to the gym, you're allowed to go to restaurants, and you're allowed to socialize with more than 10 people in groups. And I think it's more than 50 if you're outside. And I've seen that in shops, maybe only 75% of people are wearing masks, whereas a month ago it was maybe 90%. And it's worrying because Michigan's one of the best in the U.S. right now in general, minus Detroit. But we've opened up, for example, at my university, MSU has opened up entirely, more or less, for teaching in the autumn. So there's going to be a lot of people suddenly flocking in from all around the U.S. and potentially the world here into our little town, and that's really worrying me. Like I'm not going to be. I'm staying in isolation for like the next few months. I'm not going.
Yeah, I can understand that. Like, no, I would say the vast minority of people are wearing masks here. Like you don't see that many people
here.
It's only just become a thing in Britain. I've noticed. Like, I've seen some of my friends now mention they just got a mask, and I'm like, what? Like, we've had ours for 3 months. Like, we weren't illegally allowed to go into shops without a mask for a while. It's the interesting things in the libertarian culture of America. In that, people here are very more about their freedom than they are about, the idea of a mask is possibly a good defense for other people nearby you and prevent them from getting the disease. It's been quite fascinating to see that cultural difference. I've not seen any other country try to say that sort of thing.
That is probably one of the biggest challenges I think we run into in the United States is what our culture has been sold as what it means to be American, to be America, to be free, all of these ideas around it. And unfortunately, I think it is more of a sales pitch, and it is what people have been pushed to, what often I think the rest of the world portrays U.S. patriotism. Because we've had that conversation in the past, Ken, where patriotism by itself is something anybody can have in any country. But when you hear someone use the term patriotic, it's usually associated with the United States. And because of kind of what's been wrapped around it. And it's not to say that we have a blind faith in the way that our country works, but we are definitely indoctrinated from the get-go, from children on, to believe that we're the best, everything we do is right, and you have to question kind of any idea from anyone else. And it's a struggle because, you follow it up with fact and realize that there are a lot of other countries that are doing aspects of things much better than the United States. But if you try to say that in the U.S., the most common response is, in almost immediate disregard to whatever statement you're trying to make. And
For overt
sure.
hostility, right?
yes,
America.
to the point of hostility. It's why, and I will still say to date, whenever I hear someone say America versus America off of the old jokes that came off from those movies and stuff that started it, it's always pissed me off because I said, why would I ever want to go to this base level of trying to say what it means to be in the United States of America? Because one, when you say America, there's two Americas, North and South, and there's a whole lot of people that are part of it. Let's get the ignorance up there. But
Well, if you look
in
at
general,
the,
that term is just so annoying to me.
Oh, me too. Me too. In the UK, at least, the only time I'd ever heard people say "America" is in derision and mockery. I've never seen anybody say that in a prideful or "I'm impressed by this country" kind of way. I should also mention that freedom isn't just some obscure concept that is, impossible to measure. There is actually the Human Freedom Index, which is a, multinational index that's been collated by organizations and scientists to describe what freedom is and where are the most free places in the world. And America is, I just checked, is ranked number 15, joint with Estonia, in the freedoms ranking. That's across personal, economic, and general human freedom. It is beaten by the UK, Austria, Netherlands, Sweden, Ireland, Germany, Finland, Luxembourg, Denmark, Australia, Canada, Hong Kong, Switzerland, and New Zealand. So, and it's ranked 15 joint with a couple others. So there's a few that are joint there. That's why there's more than 15 the countries I said there. But point being that, people say America is the best country in the world due to the freedom, and I'm like, are you sure? Like, surely
well, it goes into
New Zealand.
What do we define as freedom, right? And that's, I think, part of the conversation there that a lot of people struggle with, because again, I feel like we've been indoctrinated in the United States of America as to what freedom means, versus if you have the more intellectual conversation about very specific pieces, I think you can easily find examples around the world of places that are doing it much better along the definition of what a lot of people try to believe freedom is, let alone what's being exercised.
For sure.
We are led in a culture here right now by memes and by highlights and things people like to share that are just headlines versus any real discourse or conversation. I'm actually responding to a friend right now as we're having this conversation who's suffering through social media feeds of seeing people post things that are very inaccurate and emotionally based to press certain political views. And she doesn't know how to respond to it, because for her, she's like, but that's just not true. Or it's just missing so much of the real discussion because people are just posting a quick snip of a headline. And I'm trying to provide advice back to say how to improve conversation and provide factual backing to things for people to consider.
You can't do it on social media.
It's very difficult. I've had minor success.
It can't be done. I mean, I'm sure it's being done someplace, so never say never, but I wouldn't try. That's the reason I don't have a Twitter anymore. I mean, part of it is because I was lazy with the way I curated it, right? But at the same time, like if you're really hardcore about your social media curation, you end up in a bubble.
And that's a risk,
right? And
yes.
there's the catch-22. Like, I like my Sun Tzu as much as the next person, right? But yet at the same time, like I see people post things. There are even people in my Facebook, which are really people. Most like 98% are people that I know in real life.
Yep. Yeah.
That's things that just make me
cringe.
I just wanna.
Hey.
Yeah, I keep people. I'm exactly the same. I see people constantly posting, stuff that is conspiracy theories or just entirely like non-factual or made up, or just some text somebody said. It's not a news article or anything, but like, oh, I can't believe that 16 police officers died to a black mob. I'm like, what? What are you talking?
That's good. You can't believe it because it's probably not true.
Yeah, like I'm pretty sure that's made up. I mean,
and
if it's legit, that's horrible. But that's not. It seems very political, not very factual.
My advice to everyone is, anything you see that initially pulls at you emotionally or somehow draws you in by a headline or something like that, or graphic and image, since so many people seem to want to just repost memes versus create their own discussion or share their own thoughts, is some things like that get shared often are very easily fact checked. I heavily recommend keeping in your like repertoire of sites to go to. I like Snopes.com as a start point, not as an only point of reference, but I like to go there, as well as just I go a general, be it DuckDuckGo, Google, whatever search you want to do, that look up that headline. You will likely find information about it beyond what that article that's posted states. And in those cases where I'm not necessarily trying to tell a person, hey, you're wrong, you're an idiot, stop sharing garbage, I will instead provide a link to a fact check site with my own opinion saying, hey, I saw this headline, and from what I can tell, it looks like it may not be entirely true. Here's some things I found out. And I kind of leave it at that, because even if I'm not necessarily stating what their initial opinion is, they're trying to get across as being invalid, I'm just saying, like, make sure your arguments, whatever they're going to be, are based on factual information, because it's really easy to let a person's opinion go to garbage if they're trying to support it with false facts, with fake things. And it's really easy for anyone to disregard it if you don't provide real facts behind it. So even if I disagree with your opinion, back it up with legitimate facts. Please research what you're posting.
I'm gonna say something really silly, so take it in the spirit in which it's given.
Fair.
But this is why Alex Jones should have never been unpersoned off the internet.
Oh, gotcha.
Because at least we would have a place where all the silly conspiracy theories were, and we could just ignore it. Right? But now he's gone, and it's like there's no pressure cap on the silly conspiracy theories, so it's just exploding everywhere.
It's coming everywhere.
Conspiracy theory Chernobyl. Right? And that concrete dome ain't ever getting built. So there's real.
I had an interesting experience 2-3 days ago, actually. On Facebook, I shared this quote from somebody on Twitter that I thought was very, very, very true. It said, "Why is defunding the police considered radical, but defunding education is not?"
Yeah, and, I remember seeing that.
You know, and I thought that's a great little quote, and I shared it. I didn't think anything of it. I noticed one of the group chats I'm in was going crazy like yesterday, and I checked, and it was like 35 messages, and they were all like, "Kenneth, you idiot!" And I was like, and I checked, and it turned out the guy I shared was somebody called David Starr. I had no idea who it was. It was some verified.
Oh, yep.
And turns out that's a wrestler who this week has been getting called up for multiple rape allegations, sexual assault allegations. And, it doesn't mean it's fake news. It doesn't mean what he said was inaccurate. And what he said was, I still agree with. I do think it's crazy that defunding the police is considered radical, but defunding education isn't. But the person, you shouldn't be sharing people who are clearly morally bankrupt people, or potentially social media judgment, not court judgment, right? But still, I found myself sharing somebody that I probably shouldn't have been sharing, and it's because I looked at what was said and not who was saying it.
Well, and like you said, what you run into is it potentially weakens the actual discussion point you were trying to make.
Absolutely.
Because people can just say, but look at the idiot you posted. I had a interaction with that because I posted a recent video from Dave Chappelle, that's 846, specifically talking about George Floyd and his opinions on it, and how he was kind of holding back on responding. And then he said, all right, I'm doing it. Came out of nowhere and provided his video. And I got a criticism from a friend of mine saying, wow, you lost me when you shared something from Dave Chappelle. And reason this person took issue was because in Chappelle's comedy, he often refers to women's genitalia in very crass ways and talks about certain subject matter that this person did not agree with. And so I had to continue the conversation basically saying, while I can understand and respect that you don't appreciate this person's comedy, I still believe that their experience in life and what they're discussing in this piece is valid, and have found a lot of people that appreciated this viewpoint. And so I shared it. This was my personal reason. And so I said, I fully accept and agree that if you don't want to hear what this person's having to say, don't bother. Let it go. You don't have to experience it. But I found value here. And that's how I frame discussions when I try to respond. Because I think that is valid.
But like here's a great example, right? Here's a good quote. obstacles do not exist to be surrendered to, but only to be broken. It's a great quote, right? Nobody can disagree. That's a good quote. Adolf Hitler.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, you can pick and choose and find all kinds of wonderful and horrible things depending on where you look. Absolutely.
And to everybody listening in the chat, the real one, not everybody with politics to the right of Chairman Mao, which, if you were on Twitter and you have those politics, you'll be called that. But this is the real one. Just have to draw that distinction nowadays. You know what I mean?
Unfortunately, yes.
It's just funny because I think many of the problems we have in politics and especially in social media judgment of people is that we often look at we classify good and bad, right? That's how we do it. That's the only way to do it, and we love to package people into these specific boxes of morally bankrupt or a good guy, and I think that's a really big problem because you might disagree with somebody's views on, I don't know, gender politics, but they might be amazing forerunner and, somebody who brings up lots of people who've had injustices in the court system or something. I don't know. I'm literally making this person up. That's not a real person. So point being, people can be very much shades of gray, and not only that, but there's it's like a vector of shades of gray, right? It's not like they're all good, they're all bad. It's multi-dimensional. Is the point. And we are so guilty of just saying, well, instantly we can't listen to that person because of one thing. Now, I'm not trying to advocate and say, well, that thing I shared about that rapist was a good thing. No, I did end up deleting that post, right? Because for me personally, I didn't want to be affiliated with somebody like that, for one. And two, I don't think somebody like that should get additional followers from me sharing anything of his, because screw that guy, right? But point is, there is no black and white. It is absolutely shades of gray and a vector of grays.
Nice. No, I appreciate this because for everyone in here, this is such a valid conversation to be having right now. And I think hopefully as an audience, what you're hearing from us is, well, yes, we may have our own personal views. I think we are speaking a lot to what I like to speak to fix things, to improve the situation, is processes. Like, how do we interact with each other versus the specific issue people are mad about, such that we can at least encourage discourse, we can encourage conversation, we can encourage people to actually being able to learn and perhaps grow and adjust their viewpoints based on the information they receive today. And that's what I'm encouraging. I think all of us, even because notoriously, I would say, like, if you went back and really wanted to tease yourself with some good old fashioned, just straight up yelling at each other kind of conversation, Todd and I used to go back and forth on games and certain things that we disagreed with on very openly at each other. And yet we are still great friends and learn to have actual good conversation about it. And I also, hopefully you get out of there. I don't mean for you to go into anything. I think the wrong way to go into any conversation is with an expectation of someone changing their opinion. At that point, you're having an argument. But if you can share the information you have and even perhaps share how you came to your opinion based on that information, I think that is the most valuable thing you can do today, because it may allow someone else to look at your process, to look at your information, and it may sink in a little bit of saying, wow, I didn't consider that. And now that I have, I think differently. Or they may be reaffirmed in their own idea of the world, but now they have more information about it, which may take away, because I've seen people who will not agree with me, but they accepted that what I called out information that was incorrect. They were very thankful for that because they also didn't want to be perpetuating false information. And so it's a weird state, but please don't let the challenge that exists in our conversation that's out there keep you from having those conversations. Please keep engaging. Please share your opinions. Be true to what you believe, and that is good. Just keep on it.
I love the TV show Queer Eye, right? Like, I think it's an amazing TV show. I know it's technically reality TV, and I generally don't like that, but I just really enjoy it because it makes me feel good when I watch it, and I really enjoy coming together. Usually, people of different backgrounds, culture, creed, and color, right? And it's very interesting. Quite often, there's people who have like literally never seen a black guy before are suddenly getting hugged by one, and it's like that's a beautiful experience, and it's great to see it. You see these people who are Republican talking to, probably very left-wing Queer Eye cast. And that's always very refreshing to see that they can find a middle ground to chat about things. Quite often they have like hunters on, people who are very religious, people who are traditionally kind of right wing, but they come together and chat about that stuff. And that's one of the reasons I really love that TV show. I think there's nothing more interesting. Like, how boring is it to talk to people who have exactly the same opinions of you? Like, you may as well just go talk to yourself. It's much more interesting to talk to people who have different opinions than you, but are still respectful, so you can both learn and grow. And so yeah, that's a tough part, right? That's why it's always really difficult, like rallies and protests and stuff like this, because if you want to go and like realistically, if you want to actually change anybody's mind who's at a rally, if you go up there with a bunch of signs and you shout, you're a moron, or shout slogans at them, they're not going to be like, oh, I was wrong, I am an idiot. They're probably going to be like more entrenched in their opinion. I think the best thing to do, like honestly, and this is probably kind of a controversial point, weirdly. Best thing to do, like I have some vegan friends, right, who have actually convinced me in many of their viewpoints, because what they did and their approach was amazing. They gave me vegan food and they said, try this. And we had a nice discussion about our opinions on the viewpoints of morality. And you know what? I agree with a lot of it. I try to avoid more milk products these days because I do think it's bad, the milk trade. I've begun, being more wary of I don't eat meat. I haven't eaten meat for 2 years. I eat fish though, because I think fish are too dumb to really be sentient. I really do think that. So yeah, if you change my viewpoint talking to these people, and I think that's a healthy way to go, right? Whereas I've met vegans as well who are like, oh my god, their first argument is you're evil for eating meat, and also you are a disgusting human being. And look at these videos of I don't know, cows getting their throats cut. And I'm like, wow, I just dislike you more.
And that's all that's gonna do is make me order an extra side of bacon.
Right,
right.
Like that entrenches people.
Yes.
So you've touched on something there, Ken, and that's the application of elements of personal code or worldview or mental Lego or whatever word or phrase you want to use for it, but the tying of that thing to morality in some way, right? And there's nothing particularly moral about not eating meat. There's nothing particularly immoral about eating meat, per se.
I could disagree with you on that, but
well, no. Like you said,
okay,
I understand where Todd's going here. If you're just looking at, if you're just looking at consumption of meat by itself,
my own meat, and eat exclusively deer and elk and moose, like I'm not relying on factory farms. And
there's definitely levels. I'm not saying that. There's. I would eat meat as well, right? If I went to somebody's house and they didn't know I was pescatarian, I didn't inform them, they made a meal for me and it was made of meat, I wouldn't just throw it out. I wouldn't put it in the bin. I would eat it because that's sensible, it's polite, and it would be a waste of a dead animal, right? If the world went to crap and disorder and chaos and the government and logistics all failed, and I needed to hunt to eat, I would do so, of course. So I agree that generally speaking, if you just say eating meat is bad, it's a bad overview of the point. I agree.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's just it's more than that. Just that the tying of personal philosophy or personal belief to morality is something that we've fallen a trap that we collectively seem to have fallen into. I don't know, in the last 10 years or so, and it seems to only be getting more intense as time goes on. Like
I continue to see it. Yes.
Nothing new though, new in our era maybe, but it definitely is something that fluctuates throughout history as being more and less prevalent.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
Sure. There are times when things have been demonized as immoral, recreational drug use, being the really obvious, long-standing example of it. I guess maybe it's the interconnectedness of everybody.
Yeah.
Is that we always have an instantaneous view into the headspace of anybody that we follow on any social media platform at any time.
Mm-hmm.
More globally interconnected than we ever have been before, so it's very easy for very radically different opinions to get shared, whereas before that might have taken months or years and been watered down through word of mouth.
Yep.
You're right. We're definitely in a very different era in that regard.
For sure. I think that's part of the reason we're seeing so much fluctuation in the past few years with morality, with politics, and everything else, right? It's suddenly becoming a maelstrom almost. And it's because these various previously entirely separate philosophical and moral viewpoints, what we think of a Chinese wet market, right, is suddenly now a really big thing, and it affects us because we're so interconnected. Like the diseases that potentially came from a Chinese wet market, I think it's still only a guesstimate at the moment. That's something that we now have a deep interest in. It actually affects us, and we can discuss it with people from China, Russia, the Antarctic, and here, right, wherever you are, you can talk about that online freely and instantaneously. Whereas 200 years ago, the idea of a plague coming from one country and spreading in the world, you probably wouldn't be quick to blame that country. It'd be too far away. It'd be impossible to blame that country. But now we find ourselves tempted to do so. And many people do.
I don't even want to go into that one.
No.
Because that makes me want to bring up like Spanish flu and how US started it. But anyhow, because right now I think labels like that are being used to be weaponized against places. So yes. But no,
Well, that goes back. Sorry.
No, go ahead, John.
I was gonna say that goes back to a conversation you and I had over. I think I am at work one day recently about proper language usage. We call it social distancing when I'm not sure that is accurate.
No, it's not.
Defunding police, which I hear defunding police. I think we're getting rid of all funding for the police. No, that's not what it means. But we need to use more.
Language is important. The words we use are very important, and being as correct with what message we're trying to provide by the actual vocabulary being used is super important. So yes, it's not defunding police stations, it's redistributing the amount of money being sent for those necessary services and trying to provide properly trained individuals for specific services. I dumb it down to saying don't send a gun to places that don't need it. When it comes to when do you need actual police officers trained to use violent force when necessary to cull a situation versus when do you send socially trained individuals to de-escalate and deal with those specific individuals as a separate issue.
Yeah.
And so it's using the proper terminology. It's the same thing, like you said, social distancing. It's not that we're trying to distance each other socially. We're trying to make sure, and I forget what word you brought up, John, that was more accurate to it, but that we're trying to limit the interactions of multiple people in diverse groups and who you interact with, and therefore cull the ability for people to share this virus, like not going to a massive rally or something.
Activity.
Demolition Man. Don't forget the 3 seashells.
Oh man, that is this weird things that become more relevant with time that we're just entertaining.
Right.
There's so many examples. It's crazy.
I'm going to shout at a kiosk tomorrow. Come on, Hal.
Oh man.
I want to touch on something that you mentioned about defunding the police. Jocko Willenick made a really excellent assertion that applies to like SEAL teams, because he was the SEAL team leader.
Okay.
And he said that SEAL teams spend 20% of their time in training.
Gotcha.
All the time. Yeah. And if you applied that to police officers rather than giving them the minimum required amount of training, that if they spent either 2 hours every day or 1 day a week, like drilling and doing scenarios and taking de-escalation training and getting all of the ancillary things that a police officer has to be able to do, that it might be beneficial. So then maybe not hashtag defund, but hashtag retrain. I don't know.
Yeah. I had a really interesting discussion with a guy on Facebook the other day, an old friend of mine, who messaged me and said, "Look, this is a really sensitive topic, but I know that you're very vocal about the BLM stuff, and I feel like you're open to discussing alternative viewpoints." And I was like, "That's really kind of you to say that. Thank you." So I chatted with this guy, and he said, "Look, I'm pro BLM. I agree with the concept. I think the police are massively in the wrong in the US, etc. Don't get me wrong here. I really hate the term Black Lives Matter. I think it's such a dumb term. I think All Lives Matter truly is the better phrase, because it's about all lives mattering, and surely that would bring in these, people on the outside who think that this is trying to be just pro Black lives and not pro all lives, with the context of Black people in particular at the moment." And I said, "Look, I get where you're coming from. I used to be on a similar viewpoint before I was educated on the topic. But the truth is that the reason that we say Black Lives Matter is because if there's 5 houses in the street, one of them is burning down, you say that house shouldn't burn down, call the firefighters. It's not saying that all houses shouldn't have firefighter protection and shouldn't be safe and shouldn't be burned down. It's saying the ones that's currently burning down needs help. It's that kind of viewpoint." And he said, "But surely it excludes these people who have this viewpoint, though. They don't understand that." And I said, "Yeah, but there's like an implicit 2 at the end of Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter as well. It's not just."
So Ken, I hear you. My only counter to that would be is, if I need a flowchart to figure out what something really means, then you have a bit of an issue with your message.
I don't think it's a bad thing if it makes people consider it. Right?
Well,
if you need to think about it to get to the viewpoint, it's not a bad thing.
One of the challenges it runs into is that I've seen, because I've had this struggle with a lot of people who disagree with that message in the same way, Ken, you're saying, as the person did there, who post memes, comments, things like that say, if you have to put a color in front of Lives Matter, then you're the racist. I befriended some of those people, because that is someone who's not just not getting the message, they are actively trying to diminish the entire point of what's being stated with Black Lives Matters. That's my concern, is that when people try to say things like all lives instead of Black lives, what they're doing right now is trying to distract, diminish, and avoid the actual uncomfortable conversation of systemic racism in the United States. And they're using that because it makes them feel bad. And I'm sorry, and I just about cursed on air, but screw you for not wanting to feel uncomfortable anymore and feeling like this has gone too long on your social media and that too many people are talking about it and it makes you feel bad. Check your privilege, check yourself, that you are able to walk away from the conversation versus living it every day because of the color of your skin. And so I have no sympathy for you if that's how you feel. And I will respond by saying, in similar to what Ken's putting out, the reason Black Lives Matter as a term has been put out there and been a big issue is to say, this is the problem we're focusing on now. It's why you've also heard, with this month in particular being Pride Month, such things as Black Trans Lives Matter, because it's blending the issues that Black Lives Matter is still the big issue, but we're also in a Pride Month where people are focusing on LGBTQA type issues and such, to also provide visibility of that, because those things have not all been solved. We're not in this harmonious, wonderful world where everybody feels safe and secure and like all of their rights and perspectives matter, that it's equally represented. So that's why those things come up. And in that same term where I saw someone post the meme of, if you post color in front of, I wanted to respond, but I held myself back to saying, you who also post Blue Lives Matter is going to say something about color and racism? What? Shut your mouth. Shut your mouth. Because yes, I respect my police friends who serve and try to do good things. But at the same time, I also put out to them, because I know quite a few police officers, I posted out a thing very specifically saying, hey, here's a situation that makes me uncomfortable as a black man, where a video showing someone being interacted to by police officers. Could you, as police officers, tell me how he could have acted better to avoid getting thrown to the ground, handcuffed, and abused by police officers, when I believe what he was doing was within the citizens' rights? Crickets! And so I have concern when those same police officers choose to be silent about providing any actual path forward for conversation or better ways of discourse, and sit back trying to not add to the, oh, I'm not going to yell at you and say that, that they're doing something racist, but at the same time, they're not going to show any example of them combating or helping push it forward to get to a better place. Because complicity is an issue, is a very big issue. And it's the same memes I keep seeing. I'm sorry that we've gotten so far back onto the subject, but it is current, that the meme I saw when you say people trying to say all lives matter, but guess what? It's not white people getting hung in trees right now in the United States being lynched and having police officers say that it's suicide. F you.
Yeah. Oh, crap.
I am not committing suicide by hanging myself from a tree.
Yeah.
So,
totally
there
right,
is a point where the color matters, because that's today's issue. And it can be expanded to say, yes, I absolutely agree all lives matter. I absolutely agree nobody should be getting killed. And by the way, when it comes to police, oh man, I'm ranting. When I'm on the police thing, police officers are there. Police officers are there to save moments in time to get people into the legal system. They're not there to be judge, jury, and executioner. Ever. Now, I don't care what the offense is. If you did something, even if it's punching a flippin' officer in the face, that does not deserve someone dying. Because punching someone in the face is assault. And the charges for assault never resolve in murder or death sentences. So there is no excuse for a man running away from police officers who turns around and shoots a taser at him that he took off them to be shot and killed, because he never used lethal force. Those officers were never, ever concerned for their damn lives. They are not supposed to be killing people. You arrest them. I don't care if you have to use some harsh force to get them in the legal system, but you get them in the legal system. That is your damn job, cops.
Yeah.
Sorry. That is.
Power to you, Wayne.
No, dude.
That needed to be said.
As a long-term and experienced ranter, I give that about an 8 out of 10.
I give it a 10 out of 10. That needed to be said, sir.
Long-time experienced ranter. That was very good.
And I am to the point where I am agreeing with the memes on Facebook. I know, dangerous territory, where they're saying difference of opinion is whether you like white chocolate or dark chocolate or milk chocolate. But when it comes to lives and morality and people being murdered and killed, that's not a difference of opinion. That's morality. That's ethics. Screw you.
Yep. No. I have nothing else to add, Wayne. I mean, you're the one that's leading this conversation quite rightly, and you're saying all the right things. I agree.
Yeah.
So here's the one thing I will say: how awful of a world is it that we live in, that the choice that all of us with American passports have to make this winter, this fall, is between the Orange Man and the guy who essentially invented the system,
who significantly added to this. Yeah,
all of this stomping around is about.
And even this third party that keeps coming up, that's Jorgensen, I even disagree with her because she's suddenly saying Snowden's a hero. Yeah, no, you lost my vote.
Snowden's a traitor, just if you didn't know.
Something that Jonathan and I agree on, because I agree with that statement right there. Now, I did hear something interesting about the political landscape. There may be possibly a Jesse Ventura candidacy. Maybe.
Really?
Possibly.
Huh.
The last I had heard, he was exploring the potentially a Green Party nomination. To which, with the right running mate,
It sucks because the challenge I have right now is all of the potential third parties that could come forth, because in the past election I was heavily supportive of third party, is that you're late to the game, unfortunately, damn it. Why weren't you here the beginning of the year? Why weren't you here the end of last year? Because it needed to be louder then. Because
because we didn't know it was just going to be Joe Biden, right?
Well, but there's the thing, right? But even then, if you truly had that message and that platform, because I most identify of any label of a political party with libertarian. I believe in personal rights and liberties in many ways. I do believe in rational, steps to curtail some things. But it's
So
one of those.
Were you a Gary Johnson guy?
Yeah, I absolutely voted for Gary Johnson. And I supported because he was the only one of the candidates last time that showed he knew how civics worked, how the government worked.
I liked him.
Wouldn't have called that
as well.
1,000 years too. Like I would have never called that. I'm surprised, a little taken aback, really.
No, I would
have voted Jill Stein in 2016 if I was here and had a vote.
So the problem was, and this runs into every political thing that we have here, is that you have certain entities and people that provide some good ideas, and yet they don't get the enough visibility to make it through, essentially, right? To make it all the way to getting to vote for them in any meaningful way. There's fundamental changes I would make in the United States specifically about how voting worked. I would absolutely go forward with a multi-tiered voting approach where you get to vote for your primary candidate and a secondary and potentially tertiary vote, such that if your primary is, through whatever mathematical calculation, unable to win, your vote then goes to the secondary, such that you're not limited to one vote or none. There are so many things I would do, and I would love to have that conversation with anyone who wants it about how you update, change, and make the process work for Americans. I believe the Electoral College has its place, but it needs to be revisited in such that electorates have to vote in percentage of popular vote for their individual states, such that they still represent, instead of having a state go 100% towards someone, even though they did not get that representation of the popular vote. There are so many things I would change about the processes that would allow it. And you're getting ranting, Wayne. Anyone who says anything about trying to limit voters in the United States, like happening with the closing of districts, like in Kentucky right now, where they have one voting station for 600,000 people. F you. You are anti-American. You are anti-Constitution. Stop trying to wipe your ass with the Constitution, saying that you somehow stand up for it when you won't stand up for the basic universal thing that we have as citizens, which is voting. If you will not do everything you can to improve the ability for every American to vote, then you're in the wrong. F you, you're lying, you're LARPing. You're not actually a citizen, and you don't actually care about this country, because that's all politics. Yep. You would otherwise want every registered citizen to vote. And everyone who's trying to say that the voting things in this country are based on somehow all this mass fraud that's never been proven, and are trying to hide behind that because our fearless leader, the Orange Man, tries to say that's the case, BS. You're full of it. Because guess what? In order to vote, even by mail, you have to be a registered voter. To be a registered voter, you have to be a citizen. Get your facts straight. Illegals aren't voting. People who aren't citizens aren't voting. You're full of crap. Get it straight. And so everybody should be in support of as many people voting as possible. Everybody who's a U.S. citizen should be. That is your fundamental right. That is the fundamental thing that allows us to actually be a part of civics in this country. So anyone who tries to claim they have an opinion about how this country is being run, but doesn't support everybody who can voting, you're a liar. You're a damn liar. And you're just pushing a political viewpoint.
We need a sound guy with a fire engine sound drop.
I have opinions.
In the fire today.
Like I said, I have opinions.
I think it's mad to hear the as I said in the chat, that I think America in many ways is a third world country. Eric disagreed with me, saying that he's been to these places and it's not nearly as bad as those places. I agree. You don't see starving kids on the streets here. You don't see them. They're in the schools and have lunch debt. But no, I think the U.S. is lacking in extreme ways, especially with voter rights. I think it's just insane that it's not democracy. It's not truly a
So
democracy.
They're hiding
The
behind it.
gerrymandering, the corruption, the fact that you can't mail in vote everywhere, the fact that there's so few polling stations available, the fact that they try to make it as difficult as possible to register to vote, especially if you're of a lower class or a different skin color. I think it's just insane. I don't understand why you can't just show up and be like, "Hey, look, I'm a resident or a citizen, and I can prove it by having a passport or driver's license." Why isn't that enough to vote? I don't understand why you need anything more than that.
it's an excellent question. For high comedy, if you want to, you can do a Google search for Louisiana 6. I think if you want to see an epically gerrymandered congressional district, you should see that sucker. It's awesome. It's like Human Centipede, the congressional district.
It is amazing how they manipulate and control where and how people vote.
Yep.
In reference to having Todd on and for me being whatever incensed as I have been, this is for you, Todd.
Oh my God, take it deep.
Yes. Yes.
All right. And with that, I think we reached the end of this show. Let's start wrapping things up here.
Oh boy.
Maybe another 2 hours if we start wrapping things up.
I know.
Right? No. Well, so let us bring it back. I appreciate everyone sticking through and listening to all we had to say. I very much appreciate Jon for you joining us in the first part of the show where we lightly got to discuss the things that we look forward to in your writing and the stories that you're providing. Thank you for participating with that and for sticking around for as things have gotten beyond that into more what is today in lives and such.
Yep, Jon, really good luck to you on your upcoming book launch, and ICANN has audiobook clicks. Okay, thanks, bye. Right, because there are at least two of us that would totally go for that.
Definitely. Todd, thank you as well for joining in the conversation. We love having you. I love always the insight and perspective you bring. It's refreshing and fun. You have always been a great orator, and so thank you for joining us today.
It's always good to dust off the old presentation skills. We haven't had a chance to talk about it because we haven't really talked about personal stuff in a while. But I just got elected in extraordinarily heavy air quotes, the president of the Norwegian chapter of the International Council of Systems Engineering.
Oh, wow.
So I have
sir.
speaking duties and stuff at
Awesome.
a couple of events a year. So
very cool.
Gotta dust off the old skills every now and then.
No, that's great. That's great to hear.
Thanks. Thank you.
And also, Ken, thank you as always for jumping in and keeping things straight and providing a perspective with that. But to let us out, Jon, I do want to let you share as a guest anything you'd like to pimp, let people know where and where they can follow and find you. I will put your social media in the show notes, but just so that you can get it at the tail end of the show here for anybody who would like to find out more about what you're doing and the Sword of Dragons and all of that.
All right. Well, to keep up with anything Sword of Dragons, go to www.theswordofdragons.com. That's where I put all my updates for the books out there. If you're interested in following me for more than just the Sword of Dragons, I also have a blog, Pataar, Kataar.wordpress.com. I am right now in between Sword of Dragons books working on another modern day fantasy called Chronicle of the Sentinels. And I'm actually rewriting it, and I'm loving the direction I'm taking it now. I hope that doesn't sound arrogant. Anyway, that may be the first book I get an agent and publisher for. So yeah, Kataar.wordpress.com. And then I'm also on Facebook.com/author Jon Wasik, I believe. It'll be in the show notes. And please, if you would love to get information on my books before anyone else, there will be a link in the show notes for my mailing list. I finally broke down and did the thing that every author I've ever talked to told me I need to get. So I have a mailing list now.
Awesome.
And I always give you guys on the mailing list the first scoop.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I also want to say that we've got a couple other things coming up on Show X. We've got an interview with a wildlife preservation. I don't want to. I want to say she's an expert, but it makes it sound academic. She's not an academic. She's actually out there in the field doing wildlife preservation, veterinary stuff across the plains of Africa and such. And she's going to be coming on the show for a offline interview, and we'll be posting it probably during the show sometime in the coming weeks. And I think that's the only thing. And we also got a Star Wars show coming up. I have.
We need to
real-life
schedule the date for that and to
Yeah.
see who all
Star
wants to come together. Because from
yeah.
what response I've heard, I can probably put a list of probably a good 6, 7, 8 people that could be on the show wanting to contribute to what could be like an 8-hour discussion on Star Wars and where the series is and where it could go. I has opinions.
I know I have a real world friend who wants to jump on. He's actually Graham's little brother, Wayne.
Oh, really?
I think he's like 15, 16 years old. But he is
Interesting.
a Star Wars fan through and through. Well, I'll pimp out his YouTube channel when we actually do the Star Wars show.
No, that might be a good
stop motion
perspective
Star Wars
to
stuff.
bring in. I want to hear the youth beyond
Yeah.
you, Ken. And so that would be good to know.
Right. Right, indeed. So thank you everybody for being on the show today. Very much appreciate it. We've got some interesting stuff coming in the future. Be sure to subscribe to us, follow us here on Twitch, whatever those things mean. I still don't understand Twitch, but you know, be here for us, rehost us, or whatever these things are called, and do. Also follow us on Instagram, VTWShowX. You can follow us on twitter.com/showx, twitter.com/docdead. And twitter.com/drkenreed for the show, for Mr. Wayne, for myself as well. You can check out us on Facebook, search for ShowX there, and on Reddit, reddit.com/r/ShowX. Start the discussion there. Comment on any of the posts that we have up there. They're auto-posted from every episode we have, so feel free to start a discussion there if anything you want to say, or share us to other subreddits you think are appropriate as well. Anything that you want to give a shout out to, John? Anything else you want to give a shout out to, social media and such?
No, that's about it. I mean, I have an Instagram, but as an author, I don't know what to ever post on Instagram.
Pictures of your books and you in a writing scene and things like that. Anyhow, no, awesome. And
Well,
Todd,
we have Twitch also. Yes, sorry.
You see, yeah, post out the fact that you guys stream. Todd, last shout out to you for joining us as well. Anything you'd like to pimp or make sure people are aware of before we end today's show?
No, in fact. I'm actually going to be on vacation in a couple of weeks.
Nice.
And there will probably be gaming streams during that couple of weeks. But I will probably be on the show between now and then, so we'll worry about the details then.
Awesome.
But it's mixer.com/Cocktail Gaming TV Plus, I think is what I called it.
Okay. Well, definitely.
Yeah, Cocktail Gaming TV Plus.
Okay, cool.
Well,
cool.
So random plus being funny with the plus.
Okay, we'll get the link and make sure we include it in the show
Hold
notes
on,
so that anybody can do it.
I'll post it in the chat. I've got
Okay,
it.
cool. That way we have it. But no, thank you everyone for joining us. We hint over here as we sometimes do. Thank goodness for the interwebs and not having shows butting up with us. So thank you for sticking with us. We are out of here for today. I don't think we have a scheduled thing for anything coming up right out of this. John, you had one more thing? Or
no, I was just
saluting. All right, with that, we're out of here. Ken, any other follow-ups? Let's lead us out of here, and we're out for today.
Thank you all. You've been listening to ShowX live on twitch.tv/VTWShowX. You can follow us on YouTube as well and wherever else you're listening. Thank you so much for having us. Bye-bye.
Goodbye now.
All right, everybody. We're out of here. And just for you, Hando.
You've been listening to ShowX and VTWProductions.com. See you next zombie!